离婚了。
I got divorced and left with nothing. As soon as the paperwork was finalized, my ex-mother-in-law called and told me to move all my belongings out of the house. I never thought I'd be kicked out of my own home, a place I paid for. But for my child, I accepted it. That's right. At 35, I'm about to start a new life alone with my child. Looking back on my 10-year marriage, it was a disaster. From the moment we agreed on the divorce until we completed the process, we didn't say a single word to each other. I don't know what he was avoiding. Maybe the fear that I'd leave our child with him. Our child was born with a congenital heart defect, and when he suggested giving up on treatment, I swore I would never abandon my child. This woman also revealed that her husband had secretly racked up over 1 million yuan in debt. She was the one who filed for divorce, giving up all their assets to him and leaving herself with nothing. If his family had even once expressed interest in taking care of their child, she wouldn't feel so heartbroken. Reflecting on the past decade, she choked up as she said,
给你爸妈在老家盖房子。
I helped your parents build a house in the countryside. When your sister didn't have money for her home, I borrowed for her. I took care of everything for our 2 children's education. I even helped you pay off your debts. When we first got married, you said you wanted to start a business. Every time you said you had cash flow problems, I couldn't sleep at night. I swallowed my pride and borrowed money everywhere to support you so that you'd have no worries. And what did I get in return? The moment we walked out of the civil affairs office, it was all over. From now on, I hope I'll never suffer from love or life again. According to a report from mainland China's True Story Project, there's already been a noticeable rise in divorce cases among Gen Z. Li Hua, born in 2000, was among the first of this generation to marry. He grew up in a rural area near Bangbu, surrounded by mountains, where his family sold homegrown fruit. He met his wife at a factory, and they had 2 children after marriage. One day, he discovered his wife had developed an emotional connection with someone else. After a heated argument, they agreed to divorce and signed the paperwork. Yu Xin, also born in 2000, got married in 2020 when she had just reached the legal age for marriage. She met her husband on a social media platform earlier that year, and they hit it off when they met in person. Their relationship progressed quickly, meeting, dating, and getting engaged all within a year. However, their marriage lasted less than 2 years. At 22, Yuxin discovered her husband had been unfaithful. After much internal struggle, she decided to divorce him. Wang Shuai, another from this generation, initiated his divorce during an argument. After the birth of their child, his idealized vision of family life gave way to endless debates about raising the baby. The young couple argued constantly, with neither side willing to compromise. Wang often resorted to silent anger, sitting next to their child while playing on his phone. 9 months after their wedding, Wang Shuai and his wife found themselves back at the civil affairs office. They had already agreed on child custody at home and simply followed their appointment to collect their divorce certificate. Many netizens in China commented, "Divorce has become so common in China. Most young couples I know who got married have already divorced." At a dinner party with 6 people, only 1 had just gotten married. I was still single, and the other 4 were all divorced.
中国离婚率
China now has one of the highest divorce rates in the world. Why? It comes down to the reasons people get married. In the past, marriages were about maintaining family status and wealth. Now, women often just show up with a few blankets and wash basins, while men are expected to buy a house, a car, and pay exorbitant dowries. From the start, it's unequal. Marriages should be based on love to last. If it's about status or money, it's bound to fail. As divorce rates in China continue to rise, a surprising new industry has emerged: the business of destroying wedding photos.
Clients send their items via courier, and on the day of destruction, the staff opens the package. They spray paint over the wedding photos, record the process, and send the video to the client. Then the photos are shredded and the fragments are sent to a power plant to be dissolved.
According to the Washington Post, a 32-year-old married man named Liu Wei pioneered this unique industry. In 2022, after resigning from a company in Beijing, Liu began operating a business specializing in shredding documents and destroying personal information out of a warehouse in Langfang. Initially, the business wasn't very profitable. However, in early 2023, Liu noticed a demand in the market and turned it into an opportunity. Due to strict urban waste sorting regulations, people couldn't casually discard wedding photos, especially since they involved privacy concerns. Many clients faced the problem of disposing framed wedding photos. In a promotional video, Liu said, "Send your photos to me, and we'll make them disappear completely, as if they never existed." The video received over 1 million views, and his business quickly gained traction. Clients simply send their photos to Liu, and his team handles the destruction through professional processes, ensuring the protection of their privacy. For materials like tempered glass or wood that cannot be shredded, they use sledgehammers to smash them. The fragments are then sent to a power plant to be processed as biofuel. The entire process is recorded and shared with clients for verification. Reports indicate that around 80% of Liu's clients are women who mail their wedding photos from all over China, seeking a way to make a clean break from the past. Over the past 9 months, Liu's team has destroyed nearly 450 sets of wedding photos. Currently, photo destruction accounts for over 95% of his business, with wedding photos making up 80% of that. Moreover, Liu has no shortage of potential clients. In the first half of this year alone, 1.27 million couples registered for divorce in China. The current state of youth marriages in China shows a rising divorce rate and a declining marriage rate. To combat low birth rates, the Chinese government has introduced various measures to encourage young people to marry and have children. However, these efforts have yet to yield significant results.
男房里空空荡荡。
Maternity wards are empty, and the front doors of marriage registration offices are deserted. Nowadays, young people in China are not only avoiding having children, but are also choosing not to get married. Marriage in China has become a major financial burden. Take Guangzhou as an example. The median monthly salary in Guangzhou is 4,811 yuan, which means half the population earns less than 5,000 yuan. If someone saves every penny for a year, they would only have about 50,000 yuan. But how much does a wedding cost? Data shows that the average cost of a wedding in China is 330,000 yuan, which would take nearly 7 years of saving without any expenses. And this doesn't even include the cost of a house, a car, or bride price. For most people in China, getting married can lead to financial collapse. So, what would you choose? According to the latest data from the Ministry of Civil Affairs, the number of registered marriages in the first 9 months of 2024 decreased by 943,000 couples compared to the same period last year. In the first half of 2024, marriage registrations were only about half of the 6.94 million couples registered during the same period in 2014, hitting a 10-year low. Demographer He Yafu estimates that the total number of registered marriages in 2024 will be around 6.6 million couples, the lowest since 1980. The ongoing economic instability in China, coupled with rising living costs, has led young people to delay their marriage plans. This trend has further impacted China's population policies. The weak economy has increased unemployment rates, and many local governments have cut public sector jobs. This has significantly reduced the number of ideal marriage candidates, such as government workers and public institution employees, contributing to the declining marriage rate. Beyond economic issues, analysts point out that China has not addressed gender equality. Problems like exorbitant bride prices and the expectation to buy property as a ticket to marriage have made it even harder for young people to tie the knot. Even with government efforts to encourage marriage, the trend is difficult to reverse. According to a report by Voice of America, Tan Earn-Sir, a senior research fellow at the Institute of Policy Studies in Singapore, noted that financial stability and assets have become unavoidable barriers for Chinese men seeking marriage. Tan explained that marriage-age women, especially in cities, are more likely to consider marriage only if potential partners have sufficient financial resources, such as a good job, and a home for starting a family. With many young men unable to meet both criteria or lacking parental support to buy property, the number of marriages is expected to decline. Tan also suggested that foreign spouses might become an option for young Chinese people unable to find suitable partners domestically. Men might look for spouses from developing countries, while educated women might seek wealthier foreign partners. In Shenzhen, Mr. Wu shared with Voice of America that young men in his city face unrealistically high standards for marriage. One of the biggest burdens, he said, is the rising cost of bride prices due to inflation in recent years. Mr. Wu mentioned that Jiangxi province is widely recognized for having the highest bride price expectations, while Sichuan and Guangdong are slightly lower. What's shocking is that even families with average or low incomes, including rural households, often demand tens of thousands of yuan. He added that this practice, which he described as akin to auctioning off daughters, hasn't diminished despite China's economic downturn and declining marriage rates in recent years. He said, "The bar for marriage has become extremely high. You need a house, a car, and a significant bride price to marry someone's daughter. The costs are outrageous. Many people around me, especially those from lower income groups, have simply given up." On the other hand, the Chinese government has made continuous amendments to the marriage law in recent years, reducing protections for women in areas like property division and divorce rights. According to Shang Guangluan, a writer originally from Sichuan province and now living in Taiwan, this has also contributed to women's growing reluctance to marry. She explained that under the current laws, a housewife who gets divorced could be left with nothing. Speaking to Voice of America, Shangguan said, "Today, Chinese women are becoming more independent and less bound by traditional views on marriage and childbearing. This is closely tied to economic factors. Many women have done the math and realized that marriage and childbirth are not worth the cost to them, so they're forced to become independent." Why do Chinese women resist pressure to marry and have children? This also has much to do with the country's social system. Lulu, originally from Gansu and recently immigrated to Canada, shared her experience. She said, "Back in China, I absolutely didn't want to have children because the pressure was just too overwhelming. But now my perspective has changed, and I'm open to having kids. I think it's partly cultural. I can't say my current partner is perfect, but at least he won't just leave everything to me like many men in my hometown. Most importantly, this is a free society. The social system here, at least for the next 10 or 20 years, seems stable enough, so I feel it's possible to have children." At age 33, Lulu once held a respectable office job in Beijing, but decided to pursue studies in Canada after a few years. She stayed after graduation, met her current husband, and recently got married. She plans to apply for citizenship in the future. Lulu admitted that before moving abroad, having children was never an option for her because she felt like she was treated like a blade of grass. She said, "They don't water you, don't fertilize you, and block the sunlight. Then they ask, 'Why aren't you growing?'" When talking about the status of women in China, Lulu grew emotional. She said, "A woman's womb has never truly belonged to her. When there were too many people, they forced sterilizations to stop you from having kids. Now that the population is shrinking, when they first lifted the two-child policy, all those old family planning ads suddenly transformed into cheerful family of four campaigns. I find it absurd and ridiculous." Although Lulu lived in Beijing for many years, she believes her hometown better represents the typical social environment in China. Places like Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou are exceptions. She always wanted to escape her hometown, as far away as possible. She said, "In my hometown, the core values are about what others think and how others see you. But this scrutiny is only directed at girls. Boys are given much more tolerance. As long as a man doesn't do drugs, he's considered a good guy. But if a girl wears a slightly shorter skirt, she'll be criticized." Lulu told Voice of America that women in her hometown still don't receive the respect they deserve in society, especially with the intense pressure to marry and have children. Even highly educated women aren't spared from this pressure. She has several female friends who, after being pressured by their families, married and had children with men they didn't know well. Some of them later discovered their husbands were unfaithful but stayed in the marriage for the sake of their children. Lulu said, "These marriages often lack a foundation of love. Both sides are usually pressured by their parents, and if they find each other somewhat acceptable, they rush into marriage. But living with someone day in and day out is completely different from just finding them agreeable at first glance. The outspoken feminists we see online are only a small group. A lot of women, especially in rural areas like my hometown, even those with high levels of education, still can't escape cultural oppression and their disadvantaged position." However, Lulu has also noticed that more women are now refusing to get married or have children. Even in her conservative hometown, there are women in their 30s or 40s who are still single. She said, "The pressure doesn't work anymore because women have become more aware. And with the economy being so bad, women already face huge challenges in the job market. When women apply for jobs, they're asked questions like, 'Do you have a boyfriend? Are you married? Do you have kids?' This isn't unique to China. Around the world, when the economy is struggling, men are prioritized in hiring. In China, there's also the 35-year-old threshold, where employers favor younger workers. It's not just women. Men feel the pressure too. Many men think the cost of marriage is too high and decide not to get married either. They're fine staying single."